Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to take a real deep dive into the extraordinary life, the profound spiritual evolution, and the enduring legacy of an absolute reggae icon, Fantan Mojah. If you follow modern roots reggae, man, you already know that unmistakable voice. You know that boundless energy. But today, we're really going to use the historical records to unpack what made him such a generational force. We're talking the whole shebang, tracing his steps from the gritty streets of Kingston all the way to massive global festival stages. Let's get right into it. And we're actually starting this deep dive with a quote that perfectly captures the immense weight of his recent loss. Shortly after his passing on July 14, 2026, Nikisha Burchill of Jamaica's People's National Party released a really powerful statement. She said, "His music reflected the soul of our people and carried timeless messages of hope, spirituality, and justice." Think about that for a second. When major political figures pause to honor an artist like this, it tells you their cultural impact goes way, way beyond just entertainment. Fantan Mojah wasn't just dropping tracks, he was literally a cultural pillar. Moving into our first section, an icon's untimely departure. We have to begin in the present day, marking the tragic and honestly entirely too soon departure of a true musical warrior. He passed away at just 49 years old, literally weeks shy of his 50th birthday. But if you really want to understand his unyielding spirit, you just have to look at his very last social media post. Just days before we lost him, he posted a video wearing the green, yellow, and red of the Rastafarian flag, joyfully dancing behind a mixing console to his own music. The caption? Just one single word: fire. Right up to the very end, he was so full of life, bursting with energy, and totally immersed in the music that defined him. So how did he get there? That brings us to section 2. From streets to sound systems. Because before the world knew him as this international icon, his path was, well, it was anything but easy. We're looking at a story of ultimate perseverance here. Born Owen Moncrieffe in White Hills, St. Elizabeth Parish around 1975 or 76, he eventually made that tough move to Kingston to chase the dream. But get this, he didn't start out in some cushy recording booth. He started out as a window washer. He was out there hustling tirelessly on the streets, while at the same time working with a traveling sound system called Kilimanjaro. He'd literally perform during their sound checks, fighting tooth and nail for any chance to get his totally unique voice heard. Joe Bogdanovich, the head of Down Sound Records, has this amazing recollection of their first encounter. He said he met him as a kid washing windows. A simple, genuine conversation turned into a recording session, which eventually led to his breakthrough singles in 2004. Talk about being ready for your moment, right? That raw, street-level hustle was the absolute bedrock of his entire career. All right, section 3, becoming Fantan Mojah. To really grasp his legacy, we've got to look at a massive spiritual pivot he made in 1997. The contrast here is just wild. Early on, he actually went by the stage name Mad Killer, which was a direct nod to the hardcore dancehall legend Bounty Killer. But as he became more deeply exposed to the Rastafarian movement, his whole worldview completely shifted. Guided by another absolute giant of reggae, Captain, he dropped the Mad Killer moniker and became Fantan Mojah, permanently locking his identity into his newly awakened spiritual path. And with that new name came a totally new set of core messages. He consciously stepped away from the violent or highly sexualized content that was dominating certain dancehall circles back then. Instead, he channeled that powerful voice into faith, righteousness, social justice, and African resilience. He essentially turned his music into a vessel for a higher purpose, determined to actually uplift his community. Which leads us perfectly into section 4, the power of passion. Let's talk about his secret weapon. In a genre absolutely packed with incredible vocalists, Fantan Mojah had something you just can't manufacture in a studio. The Achi's Reggae blog hit the nail on the head in a 2016 review. They wrote, "Where Jah Cure has what is seemingly the greatest voice, Fantan Mojah has passion. It was this raw, unadulterated zeal. You could physically feel it in every single performance." The reviewer joked that he probably had more passion than he even needed for daily life, but he poured every single drop of it right into the mic. And when we take a deep dive into his discography, you see exactly how that intense energy created these massive border-crossing anthems. Back in 2005, his debut, Hail the King, dropped heavy-hitting tracks like Hungry. Then in 2008, Stronger proved he was here to stay. Jump to 2016, and Soul Rasta showed that his fire hadn't dimmed one bit. These aren't just songs. For roots reggae fans around the world, these are timeless anthems. The absolute biggest takeaway about his artistry, his insane work ethic. The critic noted that even if a specific track wasn't your favorite, you always knew he was giving it 100% full effort, all of the time. Whether it was a spiritual praise to Jah or a gritty street survival track, he left it all out there. You literally never got a phoned-in performance from him. Every single note sounded like his life depended on it.
His 2016 album, Soul Rasta, is a perfect example of this. The title track just drips with his lifelong love for reggae. Plus, he brought in heavy hitters for a massive collab on Kingston Town, featuring his mentor Capleton and Turbulence. It was a huge milestone that proved he could keep evolving while staying fiercely loyal to his traditional roots.
All right, moving to our final section, an enduring reggae legacy. We've talked about the man, we've talked about the music, but what's his lasting footprint on modern reggae? To his fans, he wasn't just a singer. He was a true, conscious reggae icon. What does that mean? It means when massive commercial trends were pulling the genre in a much more secular direction, he stood like a rock. He championed a deliberate return to traditional values, prioritizing righteous messaging and cultural upliftment over, easy mainstream popularity. He was an anchor, keeping the music tethered to its spiritual soul. And you could see the sheer scale of that impact the moment he passed. The reggae community was flooded with tributes from absolute titans, guys like Sizzla Kalonji, Lutan Fyah, and Nesbeth. They weren't just mourning a colleague, they were mourning a true brother-in-arms, a warrior who stood shoulder to shoulder with them for decades, defending the integrity of roots reggae. But what you really need to take away from all this is his unmatched lifelong dedication. Even while battling declining health toward the end, his commitment never wavered. He was actively booked. In fact, he was scheduled to perform at Germany's massive Reggae Jam Festival just weeks after the time of his passing. That fire inside him, it literally burned right up until the very last second. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into an absolutely incredible journey, from a window washer on the streets of Kingston to the dancehall-inspired Mad Killer, all the way to the globally revered reggae icon, I want to leave you with one thought. How will Fantan Mojah's raw, uncompromising passion inspire the next generation of reggae artists? Because I'll tell you what, his visible voice might be silent now, but that fire he sparked is going to keep burning for a very, very long time. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.